Air Force Personnel Center has an officers assignment team specifically for our career field. We're very blessed to have two of the most wonderful folks in our career field in charge of that entire function, basically, at AFPC. There's a lot of other career fields that have so many officers, they don't get to really know people on an individual basis. Okay, our career field assignments folks are outstanding at keeping track of names and who's who and where they are, and they give you that individual attention. The unique opportunity we have here in Fmsoc as well as in Bfmoc is every so often they brief us on the officer's assignment process. Now, the reason we do this for you, one, it breaks up the schedule of events a little bit, and I'm sure you can appreciate that. I know you love our instructors very much, and we love to talk to you all day long, but it is nice to get a break from that once in a while. None of the material that she speaks about today is testable, but it's very informative, it's very good to know because, one, you may be an officer, and these may be the people that actually tell you where you're going to go next, what opportunities are available, and how to prepare yourself for success. So, very good people to know. Also, it's a good process to understand because this is our lifeline to career progression. Have they handed out those roadmaps already? Okay, so Fmsoc classes got the roadmaps. Have I gotten them? Gotten to the Bfmocers? Okay, I owe you the roadmaps. After this, I'll get those too. We encourage participation. We encourage questions. In fact, AFPC offers for the active duty officers, if they want to, you can speak with Major Smith or Captain Cook individually after the briefing. Okay? Captain Cook currently is on leave. Major Smith, she's got a tight schedule, but she is willing to meet with you individually or talk to you over the phone. So we will do that after the briefing. For the civilians, you may be asking, why in the world do I have to sit through the officer's assignment briefing? Well, it's because we got to sit through yours tomorrow. The real answer is, many of you may be supervisors then in the back. And to be honest with you, they might not have as much experience or guidance about what they're supposed to be doing now to set them up for the future. So we expect you as directors, as leaders, as supervisors, please put our next generation of comptrollers on the right track by taking some of this information back home and applying it. If you've ever wondered how in the world did this comptroller ever become in charge of a squadron like mine, how did I ever get such a person here? Well, this is going to answer all those questions for you. What's that path for the officers? You may be surprised to see, because of the restraints of the number of people we have and in what grade they are, how young we have comptrollers nowadays. And that trend may continue into the future. For our enlisted troops, why do you think we have you sit through the officer assignment and then the civilian assignment? No idea whatsoever. You guys are our backbone. You're the ones to make sure that we actually get it done. And you're the only ones, truly, who are going to be able to help us succeed or fail as leaders. Because there's nothing we lead without you. Absolutely nothing. So we rely again on you to help us as future comptrollers, as future officers in different ranks and positions to make it or break it. So please pay attention and take these lessons home because our CGOs depend on your mentorship. They depend on your experience, again, to get to the right direction. Same reason we cover the information about the enlisted corps in the Fmsoc and the Bfmoc course is so that we can, in turn, be good supervisors and leaders for your troops. So please do us the favor of also helping us out. We appreciate it very much. With that, I'm going to turn the time over to Major Smith from AFPC, who's going to do the briefing. After the briefing, I've got two folks that want to speak with Major Smith. If any of my Bfmocers change their mind and they would also like to speak with Major Smith, please get with me afterwards and I'll put you on the list. But please don't let opportunities like this pass you by. Okay? With that, I'll turn it over to Major Smith, and you can take it away, ma'am.
Thank you, Captain Wright. Good morning, everyone. Like Captain Wright said, my name is Major Smith, and currently I'm the Chief of Comptroller Office Assignments down at AFPC. At any point you guys have questions, I didn't explain something, you don't understand what I'm talking about, please stop me, and I'll answer your questions. So with that, we'll get started. Today we're going to go over assignments and developments. The first one is assignments. So how we match assignments down here in the officer assignments is meeting current Air Force needs is the #1 priority as we match officers to assignments, followed by officer professional development, functional priorities, and finally, you'll see on the slide, it's really small as the members' preferences. Our short-term goal is meeting mission requirements while also keeping in mind our long-term goal of developing our 65F workforce. Matches are based on officers' current skills, skills required to develop further at the 65F, and the position requirements. We cannot stress enough the importance of ensuring your ADP and CERF data are updated. Duty history and other factors are taken into consideration when matching personnel with assignments. This is one of the main reasons why your duty title needs to reflect accurately what you're actually doing. We love it when all the priorities align. However, when we will make the decision putting the officer's professional developments over the member's preferences every time. Next slide is just a quick snapshot on the VML. So the VML is a vulnerable to move. And there's 3 assignment cycles that the officers work under, and it's spring, summer, and fall. And we will go through and we'll look and see who's vulnerable to move during those times, the months that are during those different cycles. The time on station requirements are as followed. For our field grade officers and our captains, we'll move you from 36 to 48 months. We'll initially put you on the VML at a 36-month mark, and for our lieutenants, we move you at 36 months. We move you every 3 years because of professional development. We want to make sure that you're getting depth and breadth on what you're doing. So we want to make sure you get a good experience for later field grade assignments. If you're a CONUS and you want to go overseas, if you're a field grade or a captain, you can move at 24 months, and as a lieutenant, we look at 24 months. So those are rare exceptions. When we build our VML, we don't look at that specific time on station. So if you want to volunteer for an assignment at 24 months or 12 months to go overseas, please contact Captain Cook and I, and we'll look into make sure that we can actually utilize your skills overseas. For joint spouse, right now it's 12 months to move over to join your spouse. The AFI is going to be changing. That's going to be 24 months very soon. And all command tours are 24 months as well. There are rare times that our commanders will stay for 3 years, but generally, since it's a grueling assignment, we move our officers for command out of 24 months. And this is just a quick snapshot of the assignment cycle. So right now, Captain Cook and I are in the middle of the fall cycle. All of the requisitions have been submitted by the squadrons, and we will make them visible in AMS starting on the 2nd of May. When you go out there and you're looking at actually all the requisitions that are visible in AMS, it's everything that an office has submitted. So we actually have a DCO during each assignment cycle to tell the officers that are on that specific move list what jobs we think we're realistically going to fill. So you can go out there and you can see everything that's out there, but really listening to the DCO is really what helps tell you what jobs we're realistically going to fill. And how we fill assignment cycles is our DT tells us how we're our priority of jobs. So when we go through and we're looking at all the jobs that are submitted by the organizations in the Air Force, this is how we fill them. For our number 1 priorities are the commanders, our chief of FMAs, and our chief of FSOs, our air staff, our MAGCOM FMAOs, joint positions that have a JADAL position assigned to it, so those officers automatically get joint credit, remote assignments such as KUNSAN and OSAN, and then our Air Force Cost Analysis Agency, because they fall under air staff. So we have to fill those. The number 1 priority. The next one is an 85% fill, and that's our number 2 priority. It's our MAGCOM staffs, any DRUs and FOAs. And our last one, number 3 priority, is acquisitions. So anyone that, if you want to do acquisitions, we rarely are able to fill those positions just because of the first 2 priorities take up a majority of our officers and our deputy FSOs. FMAs. So what we try to do for squadrons that have those positions, we try to give them a session so those new officers can get training as a deputy before they take over as the chief of an office. I think during the DT we're going to see a shift on this plan. General Brown is pushing very hard to have acquisitions be a higher priority just because of what they do and the different skill set that officers are learning in there. So I think after the DT, which meets in August, we'll see this, this plan change a little bit. When we're talking about our ADPs, here's some things that we ask for you to be, do be upfront with us. If there's a particular personal reason that maybe you need to go to a location or there's something that may stop you from going to a location, we need to know that. use a development plan that's out there. You can go to the MyPERS website and you can actually see, suggested things as a lieutenant and as a captain that you should be doing. We also ask you to clearly outline your career and your career aspirations. When I talk to officers, I ask them to tell me what their 5- and 10-year plan is. And use your leadership. You should be discussing that with your squadron commander, or if you report to a GS 13 and in a program office, talk to them and see what they think for you. We also ask you not to target a single job or a location. Everyone wants to go to Florida, everyone wants to go to Hawaii, but some of us have to go other places. So make sure that when you're looking, if there's a chief of FMA and the only chief of FMA is at Minot Air Force Base, and that's really what you want to do, make sure that you're putting that you want to be an FMA and it doesn't matter where. Don't repeat your stuff from your SURF. I can see your duty history, I can read your records, I know what's out there, so you don't need to repeat that information on your ADP. And also the big one is don't assume that we remember every phone call or email. And we try, we keep notes on every one of you in a system that we maintain, but remind us in your ADP that maybe we talked on 11 February and this is what our discussion was, to remind me of what's going on. So development. So this picture here is your DT. You can see that it's Miss Thomas and General Martin are our DT chairs, and then that's all of our functional, our MAGCOM FMs, and then different civilians in key leadership positions on air staff. And what they do for us is they provide career field oversight. They tell us, how we're gonna fill assignments, and they do policy for us as well. During the DT that meets once a year, they decide our officers are going to go to IDE, which is intermediate development education, or senior development education, so that's ACSC down at Maxwell, or maybe Air War College down at Maxwell as well. They also select our squadron command candidate list. So they'll score all of these records, and then they'll send, for squadron command last year there was about 120 officers, and off of that they selected 60 officers. Here are some exciting career broadening opportunities that are available to the FM career field. The first group is a special experience exchange duty or speed programs. The speed guide just went out recently to all officers, so I suggest that you go to MyPERS and you look at it. There are some great opportunities for you if you're looking for an experience outside of FM. The concept is that you'll gain a greater breadth and depth of experience, making you a more rounded FM officer in the future. Another opportunity is obtaining an advanced academic degree from Afpc. Afpc is located at Wright Pat, and you'll earn a master's degree in cost analysis. Following the completion of the 18-month program, you'll be assigned to a specially identified position requiring a cost analysis knowledge that you just gained. We also look for volunteers to get a PhD and the follow-on position in FMC at the Pentagon, or an instructor at DFMCS down at Maxwell. You also have it's a great opportunity. You get to go to a civilian institute and you get your PhD in 3 years. A robot message just went out to all eligible officers advertising this opportunity. The requirements that you have to complete the PhD in 3 years with a 5-year payback tour in one of those positions. The time on station requirement for speed and advanced academic degree is 2 years at the start of the program. The applications are going to be due to us at AFPC around the 30th of June. The board's going to be held this summer, with the results being released in November, and the officer begins the program the following summer. With this timeline, if you wait till the summer before you schedule the PCS to consider these opportunities, it's a little late. And if you're interested in these programs, talk with your leadership to ensure that you get your application in at the appropriate time. This is how our DT defines career path success. The slide says FM career field career checklist, but the information on the slide is what's required to get you in the game. In other words, having these items gets your name brought up in the conversation. Performance, performance, performance is critical. All these items can easily be completed, and what sets you apart is how you do them. Strats on your OPR, DGs in school, volunteering for opportunities, or all the difference makers. Some people say that your career is like a marathon, or a marathon is still a race. You have folks that finish in the top, the middle, and some folks that just appear to be running for fun. Be the folks finishing in the top. advanced academic degrees are seeing a new renewed focus at the DT. 8A, the degrees and follow-on tours will help create a well-rounded 65F officer. The cost analysis skill set will become increasingly important. It's easy to be an FMer when the funding's abundant. We really earn our keep as FMers during the lean times, and the strong base and cost analysis is most helpful and sought after. Don't race the DT. When you're eligible to complete training or certifications, get them done. This goes back to how you do these things and seeing them set them apart from your peers. I cannot stress the importance of having your records up to date and current. Things like proper duty titles, short tours, making sure all your OPRs are important. If you see an error in your record, please contact us. We can try to help you get those updated, but it's really important that everything is correct in your record. CGO development. Worldwide, we have less than 30 Chief of FMA positions, and that's total positions, not positions per cycle. My advice is to seek the job and not the location. Also, for example, we get calls all the time about an FSO position at Herbert, a cost job at Eglin, and a budget position on the Afpc staff, all from the same officer. This clearly communicates to us that the officer is more concerned with locations, the needs of the Air Force, and professional development. There's nothing wrong with looking at locations. We love to create win-win situations, one that matches the Air Force needs, the officer development, and members' preferences. Believe it or not, we're able to make win-wins happen all the time. But this goes back to asking for jobs and locations requirements that are on the AMS website, not just the authorization. There may be an authorization in Paris, France, but we're unable to fill that because it's a lower priority and we don't have enough officers to fill the higher priorities. Don't waste a job or location choice on a position in the location that we're not going to fill. Quick word on the career broadening. Take advantage of them if the timing is right for you and your leadership supports. Due to manning constraints, we're not releasing officers to compete for ROTC or USAFA above what the Air Force tells us we have to fill. Each cycle we receive institutional requirement quotas, or quotas determined based on how many officers we have currently serving in these types of positions in our career field health. For the summer cycle, we received 8 quotas with only 45 officers moving. Again, your ADP is your communication to us, so if you're interested in serving in one of those billets, make sure your ADP is up to date. I will stress that for the officers in there, you only have 9 years until your IPZ to major. So the jobs that you're doing now are the jobs that are going to help get you your assignments later on as a field grade officer. So make sure that when you're looking at it, you're looking long term and not just the most immediate assignment that you're going into. FM, we're a must-compete career field, so that means whether you would like to or not, once you're a major select through lieutenant colonel, you compete for command. The time on station requirement is 15 months by the year that you're going to take command. If you have a DROS during that year, or you're in a must-move status, for instance, you're graduating from school and it's time for you to go on to do something else. If you're in a joint position, you can have to be there for 34 months, but we can't get that waived down to 22 and you still receive joint credit. An officer is not eligible if they have an open UIF or they're deferred for promotion, so they were passed over. Right now for the DT that will meet this summer, if you're IPZ or in the zone for 06 during calendar year 15 or 16, you will not compete for command. So what happens is Captain Cook and I compile the list, we get all the records, and we send those records to the DT. The DT will score the records and selects the candidate list. When the DT is convened down here at AFPC, when they leave, we'll have a good candidate list, and from there, our DT members, it's kind of like an NFL draft is what happened last year. We get together on a telecon, and everyone gets their #1 pick. And from there, the MAGCOM FMs are the bidding authorities to the wing commanders, and the wing commanders are the hiring authorities. So that all plays out in about a 3-month period. Last year when the DT met in August, the actual squadron command list was released for who was hired for command by December of that year, so it happens very, very quickly. We show this slide because there's a big perception out there that acquisition officers don't fare as well on the squadron command board compared to the officers with a purely O&M background. So what Captain Cook and I did is we reviewed the last 3 squadron commander boards, and they scored very, very close. So just because you're going to acquisition doesn't mean that you're never going to command. It really comes down to performance. So I won't read that slide to you, but you can see that really about half of our officers that are going to command in any given year have some kind of acquisition background. So don't feel like just because you're doing that you're never going to have the opportunity to command. It really just comes down to performance. This is something that I really didn't understand before I came down to AFPC. So selects versus candidates. Off of the promotion board, the top 20% of officers selected for major are considered selects for IDE, and IDE is Intermediate Development Education. So they go to Air Command and Staff College down at Maxwell or one of the other programs that we have. And off of the Lieutenant Colonel Board, if you're the top 15% of all of the Air Force, you're considered a Senior Development Education select. That means that the Air Force in one of those windows has to send you to school. So how that happens is every year the senior rater nominates whether a select or a candidate. So even if you're not a select off the promotion board, you still have the opportunity to go to school later on. Your senior rater will push you to school during a 3849, which is an automated form that you submit over the MyPERS secure sites. And if you're going to IDE, so your major, you have a three-year window, so you have 3 looks to go, and for SDE you have a 4-year window. So during those time, if you're a select, you have to go to school during those one of those windows. What happens is that your senior rater pushes you, so that's kind of like your ticket to the show, pushes you to the DT, and if you're not pushed by your senior rater, the DT cannot score you and push you further on to go to school. So the DT scores those records and nominates officers to attend one of those schools. And then there's a central board that happens here at AFPC that recommends matches the person to actually whatever school they're going to go to. Officers that if you've attended AFIT, whether it's a PhD or a master's degree, if you want to get in-residence credit, say you don't want to attend school, you've got other things on your mind you'd rather do, you can ask for in-residence credit, and you can, but only if you've attended AFIT. So you have to score above the cut line in order to get in-residence credit, and what that does is gives that officer credit and allows us to send another officer to go to school. So the battle space that we're working in here is there's a lot of forces that shape our assignment environment. Our DT tells us how we're going to match assignments. It's our mission. We don't have as many officers as we'd like to have. We used to, when I was a lieutenant, we had a ton of lieutenants running around, and we just simply don't have that anymore. We have to look at what our manning requirements are and the requirements within the unit, and finally the officer development and the DT vectors. Our DT previously had a formal process for vectoring their officers, and we looked at certain year groups that we do that, and no longer do we do that. That's been pushed to the MAJCOM FM, so they should be looking at their officers within their command and vectoring them, which all vector is a recommendation for what jobs you should do in the future. The statements of intent, you should have received an email from Captain Cook and I telling you a statement of intent was due on 18 April. If you didn't get your statement of intent because our systems were a little screwy down here for AFPC for a while, just let us know and you can still push it in. And the TSDM on IDE and SE was released already, and those were all already due to us. So some takeaways. We say it's performance is first, last, and always. Excel in what you're doing. I had a mentor once tell me, grow where you're planted. So do the best job that you can do in the current position that you're in. Complete your master's degree and advanced academic degree as soon as you can. That sets you apart from your peers. Complete your development education. So if you're a captain and you haven't done SOS by correspondence, get it done as soon as you can. If you're interested in going to AFIT, we suggest that you talk that with your leadership and make sure that that's an appropriate career path for you, and submit your 3849s to us very soon. And last, always, is make sure that your records are updated at all times. Prior to any promotion board, it's critical to update your records, but they can be pulled at any time if you're being considered for a key position. And specifically, make sure your duty title clearly identifies the scope and the work that you're doing. We want to make sure we're seeing leadership in what you're doing. So if you're the deputy FSO or the deputy FMA, make sure that's in there. The DT does have standardized duty titles that they'd like to see, just so everyone understands what you're doing. So with that, If you're on Facebook, we have a Facebook page, so please come out there and be friends with us. We do post information out there occasionally. That's Captain Cook's information. I'm leaving here in June, so Captain Cook will definitely be the person that you talk to. Those numbers ring directly on our desk, so you don't have to get through a phone tree. You just dial 3976, DSN 665-3976 for Captain Cook and 3977 for myself. We're always here. We love to talk to people. We love to talk about development and records and whatever's going on in the Air Force. So please give us a call anytime you have questions. And with that, that's really all I have today, unless you guys have questions for me.
Your career.
If you don't want,
Smith,
go ahead.
okay, this is Captain Wright. I have a question for you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Since we have some brand new folks in the class, when should they be looking at opportunities? For example, these advanced academic degrees, speed programs, these opportunities for career broadening. When should they be preparing their packages, their records, and all of the documentation?
Usually we like you to start doing it within like 1.5 to 2 years of your arriving station. We like to see career broadening happening in your second assignment. So you've got some kind of base of what finance is, go to and do something else, and then be able to come back to the career field and get known back into the career field by the time the DT meets. So if you want to go to Afpc to attend school, I would start doing it now. If you're about 1.5 years into your current assignment, so your first assignment. So if you don't want to ask, I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
More questions.
Yes, sir.
If you returned from the comptroller squadron training, can you give us any insight for financial managers on how to prepare for those challenges?
I didn't hear all the question. Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Since you just returned from the comptroller squadron commander training, can you give us any insight on what we should do to prepare for the challenge of becoming a commander for comptroller squadron?
If you could tell me, I'd like to know that. No. So I think the big thing is just to make sure you learn what you're doing now. Really, it's important that you have a good base of what it means to be an officer in the Air Force. You don't necessarily need to be the technical expert. There's people in your squadron that will help you with that. But if you need to learn how to be a leader, and that's the most important thing I think about being a comptroller squadron commander. The conference that I attended at Andrews is really just about leadership. We didn't really go over, how to use CRIS or any of those systems. It was really just leadership. And so what I suggest as officers is to get with your squadron commander and sit down. And I always had senior NCOs that kind of took me by the ear and showed me what it meant to be an officer. So that's really the only thing I can tell you about preparing yourself for those future opportunities. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Any words of advice for our civilians who are going to be supervising our lieutenants?
My first supervisor as a lieutenant was a GS-12. I started out in acquisitions. I think sharing them, you guys know so much, and you're the continuity in those squadrons. So taking those lieutenants and sitting down and really training them on what you do and how, as a lieutenant, you're supposed to be you're supposed to learn technical stuff as you grow up, and you learn less technical. So sit down with them, make sure they understand, the new systems that are coming out, whether it's BQ when I was a lieutenant or if it's DEAMS now, making sure they understand that part of FM. That's stuff that, we move around so often. So as officers, we really depend on those civilians to guide us through and show us that technical part of it. So I encourage you to, even if they seem like they don't have time or they don't want to listen to you, I encourage, same way that my senior NCOs grab them and sit down and teach them what you know.
Another question for you, ma'am, is about the force shaping measurements, or the force shaping programs that are in place right now. Do you foresee more opportunities for our CGOs to fill in higher grade responsibilities?
Absolutely. So you see that on the new matrix that are out there on MyPERS, our CGOs our 2009 and 2010 year groups are no longer going to be force shaped. We do have our 2001 and our 2002, which are majors. We still have officers that are be looking at to be selectively early retirement. So what that means to every officer out there is we don't have enough lieutenant colonels to fill our lieutenant colonel positions, and that just has a ripple effect all the way down. We're now asking first lieutenants to step up and fill key leadership positions where they were never given that opportunity before, because again, we don't have enough senior officers to fill positions, so we're always kind of pulling one down. And so a lot of our comptroller squadron commanders would love to have a seasoned captain, but what they're getting is a junior first lieutenant. So that gives you an opportunity, really junior, to go and fill those positions that maybe you weren't given the opportunity before. So force shaping is definitely putting a lot of manning constraints on us and giving opportunities to the officers to do more than they would have maybe done in the past.
The last one for me, ma'am, was regarding deployments. What advice do you have for our lieutenants and our CGOs that are within their windows for deployments? Should they just wait until they're given an opportunity, or should they be seeking deployment opportunities?
I don't think they're going to be given the opportunity to wait and seek. Our requirements are not going down. So our officers, we're sourcing already for future cycles. So there's valuable things that you can learn on a deployment, whether it's working with another service or working in a deployed environment. So you can always call our scheduler and see what's available, or work through UDM. But really, from everything that I understand, we try to place officers on assignment and they're already scheduled to deploy because we can't touch them. So I think everyone out there is going to be given that opportunity to deploy. We no longer have 365s for our officers. Actually, there's one to lieutenant colonel, but we used to have over 32 365s. So we no longer have those opportunities, but the normal AEF rotation, you're going to do it, and you're going to do it often. So you can ask your UDM, but you're probably already going to be tasked to deploy without you having to do anything for that.
Any other questions from the groups? All right. So we got a real talkative group today, ma'am. Yeah. I've got two that absolutely said that they want to speak with you individually afterwards. So I'll have you call. Okay. I'll have them call you on the DSN.
Yes,
any
sir.
Final words before you take off?
If you don't want to ask a question in this environment, in a big group, I know a lot of people get shy, please call me. I'll talk to you one-on-one. Even if it's not an officer, if there's someone out there that just has questions on maybe they're working with officers or whatever, please call me. I can definitely help you out with that. And I mean, I'm here till June, so you can call me afterwards even. But Captain Cook is definitely a person you'll be working with long term. Thank you for the opportunity today, and I look forward to seeing all you out in the Air Force.
Thank you, ma'am, and good luck in your squadron command.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.